Lemonade, lemonade.
Sure, how much?
That'll be $700.
You can't be serious.
Who taught you math?
I learned from Bob Hugan. He ran a drug company that charged $700 for a cancer pill that only cost 65 cents to make.
Oh, that guy? He's no good.
You know what Bob Hugan also did? Raised over $400,000 to help elect Trump.
Really?
Yes, really.
And he would mess up our healthcare, too, by repealing Obamacare, leading to cuts in Medicaid, and coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Who told you that?
Our parents, duh.
Well, who are they voting for?
Bob Menendez. He's standing up to Trump and Republicans from taking away our health care.
And Menendez helped write Obamacare, so you know he's going to protect it, along with Medicaid and even my grandma's Social Security and Medicare.
And women's health programs, too.
Okay, I'm with you. Vote Menendez. Vote Menendez.
Vote for Bob Menendez. Tuesday, November 6th.
Paid for by Leadership Alliance. LeadershipAllianceNJ.com. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Leadership Alliance is responsible for the content of this advertising.
TCL is a proud sponsor of the 1500 ESPN studios. TCL, America's fastest growing TV brand. Minnesota Vikings. The NFL. Football. Yeah, football. Welcome to Purple Podcast.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Purple Podcast. Matthew Coller, along with former NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels. Sage, how are you?
I am fantastic. Good morning.
Good morning to you. And a 24-9 victory for the Minnesota Vikings that I wouldn't say was the highest entertainment value football game of Sunday, but if you were looking for the biggest quarterback ass whooping, I think you found it with Matt Stafford getting sacked 10 times yesterday. And in today's NFL, Sage, I feel like it's hard with all the quick passing offenses and West Coast influences and everything like that, screen passes, short throws. It's really hard to sack a quarterback 10 times. What was your takeaway on why the Vikings were able to dominate the Lions?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. One, I agree with you. You know, if I'm calling plays and once my quarterback has already been sacked like 6 times, I'm pretty much not going to call anything like, deep. It's going to be 3-step. It's going to be screens. It's going to be bootleg stuff, get them out of the pocket. My game plan of dropping back and holding on the ball for 4 or 5 seconds is going to be thrown in the garbage by the Gatorade coolers. And so part of that, I think, is bad coordinating. Obviously, Stafford has to get rid of the football better and sometimes just throw it away and live for another day. But the number one reason that happened, the Vikings stopped the run.
Right.
And that has been an issue, not a major issue this year, but I think it's been something that they haven't been as good at in the past. Teams have been going, getting 5-6 yards on first down a lot, going 2nd 4, 2nd 5, 2nd 3. That's hard to sack the quarterback in those situations. The Vikings, I believe it was about 2.5 yards a carry they gave up yesterday.
2.8.
And 2.8.
Yes.
And that got the Lions in a lot of third and longer situations, second longer situations. And obviously then the Vikings gained the lead and then just completely dominating the end of the football game.
So the weird thing about this game yesterday is that it's 17-6 and the Vikings fumble the ball away. And I'm thinking, and I believe I tweeted this around this time of the game, man, this Vikings team just does not know how to put teams away. It seems like week after week, the offense will either just throw the ball and stop the clock or let teams stay in it. Even Arizona was still in toward the end. The Jets were still in toward the end and then made mistakes and so forth. And at an 11-point game with enough time left in the fourth quarter with Matthew Stafford as your quarterback, I was thinking, gosh, there's a chance that he could make this thing interesting. And then one of the worst plays I think I've ever seen, Sage, decided to flip the ball to Kerryon Johnson. Not a very wise choice by Matt Stafford, and then that was that. But it's odd how the takeaway from the big picture can change based on one big mistake by a quarterback.
Well, I think this is the difference between like NFL football and college football. Generally in college, a team is just better than the other. They're more talented. They've got better recruits, better coaching staff. And when they have that 14-point lead, it then turns into a 28-point lead to finish off the game. The NFL doesn't really happen that way. You know, as teams do get that 2-score lead, they do usually play a little more conservatively, take fewer chances. You really don't want to have your foot on the gas pedal all the way down, because that's when turnovers generally happen, when you're overly aggressive. We all know the value of turnovers in the NFL. In particular, when you have the lead, you don't want to turn the ball over. So usually in the NFL, teams don't sort of break away against other good football teams. And I actually think the Lions are a pretty good football team. They're not terrible. This is not, the Arizona Cardinals or the current Buffalo Bills. This is a quality football team, and they've got a really good quarterback, and it's a hard team to pull away from.
What's interesting about the Lions, when we were previewing this game last week, we were talking about how this team would have the potential to just sort of give up because of their coach, or not necessarily players stop playing, but more of just stop playing together or not believe in what their coach is selling. I saw a lot of that yesterday. I mean, there were a lot of mistakes by the Lions that a team of their talent level, I feel like, shouldn't have made. I mean, if you look over the roster, you could make a case that this should be like a 10-6 type of team, and they just didn't play like that. Not just failing to protect the quarterback, but like they took penalties and the silly fumble and things like that. It just was one of the most sloppy games I can remember by a Vikings opponent with that much talent.
I think the issue is, with the Lions is, and if I could sort of put money down on a team that's probably going to sort of fall off here the second half of the season, the Lions would be that team, definitely in the NFC North. I think when they traded Golden Tate for a third-round draft pick, Golden Tate's on the last year of his contract, which, as you know, and he'll get a big contract next year by some team. What would have happened to the Detroit Lions after that? They would have got a compensatory pick.
Right.
They would have gotten a compensation, possibly a third rounder as high as a third rounder, maybe a fourth rounder, depending on the value of that contract. So basically, they gave him up for nothing. And teams have only so many really good football players. And I really believe Golden Tate is a phenomenal football player. Actually, I think he's sort of underrated.
Yeah.
And they got rid of him. Maybe he was a pain in the locker room. He wasn't buying into Matt Patricia's thing because he knew he was, on the way out and he was looking forward to leave Detroit, whatever it may have been. But when teams get rid of good football players, really key football players, there's no way that can't have some sort of mental impact on if this organization wants to win right now or in the future. And players want to win now. Their careers are averaged low over 3 years. And when teams start talking about the future, they're talking about, possibly years ahead that, when the player is not playing football, and that doesn't do him any good.
And could there be a worse player to take off of your football team before you're facing the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, this is a guy who not only had ripped the Vikings apart a couple of times, but also is the quick pass option. He's the yards after catch guy. Xavier Rhodes put him as one of the toughest guys to cover because they would throw him the ball, and then he is like a running back after he's got it on a screen pass or a quick slant or something like that. And that's exactly what they needed, and they didn't have. They were able to throw the ball a little down the field, sometimes to Marvin Jones, but that's his role. He's not the quick pass guy that's going to make big plays after he's got the ball. I think that also played into it, and I'm sure that if you're the Lions, you're sitting there going, hey, who would have been great is the guy you traded away for nothing.
You know who would have been great to throw those wide receiver screens that I was talking about earlier to not get the 10 sacks? Golden Tate.
Yes.
He would have been that guy. He really is almost like a running back in the open field. He in some ways reminds me of like a Percy Harvin without the extreme speed, and also he has the availability, which Percy rarely did. So he is very good after the catch. He runs like a running back. He spins, he jukes. He can sort of run over people. He's got great hands. A lot of good wide receivers, in particular the guys like him, slot guys or guys that can play all over, they can get open versus press coverage. They can get open in the quick game, slants and quick outs versus man-to-man coverage. He gets separation. He's that guy. They didn't have him yesterday, and that's probably one of the main reasons they had 10 sacks in such a bad offensive game.
Okay, let's talk about the Vikings defense for a second here. I've got a blazing hot take for you, Sage. I know you're driving, so you might have to pull over for this one. Everson Griffin makes this defense a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, listen, 2 defensive ends is like having 2 good wide receivers, right? I mean, and this is no offense to the defensive ends, but, Everson's a very good player. And he, when he's out, there's also just less depth on the team. And the guy that was number 2 has to step up to number 1, and now the 3 up to the 2, and those types of things. And so, yeah, we saw it yesterday with Stephon Diggs out and how that affected Adam Thielen. Now we get to see Everson back, and Danielle Hunter is sort of just was brought to another level. I mean, he's having a really good year. He had 3.5 sacks yesterday, and so Everson Griffin's helped this defense. He's important to this defense. I don't know if you saw that post-game interview with Stacey Dales after the game. I was sort of analyzing it just by what he said, how he was saying it, and knowing he's going through some hard times, and it was. I thought it was. You might want to check that out. I thought it was a really good interview after the game, and he was so happy for his teammate Everson Griffin. Danielle Hunter. He's so happy for me. Grabbed him, and Danielle came over and got him into the interview. And you could tell, Everson makes his defense better, and the defense also, they love having Everson back.
Well, that's the thing is, I felt like when they were missing him, that there was a heartbeat that was missing too of the defense. That one of my favorite things to do is watch Everson on tape because he never stops. And that's kind of how he got hurt against Cleveland last year. They're playing, they're up by 2 touchdowns or something at the end, and here's Everson Griffin going 110% on the last play, even though it was meaningless. And it just tends to be his mentality that pushes everybody. So it isn't just the fact that he gets after the quarterback, that he draws all the attention. It's also who he is. But the attention part is huge of it, because Tom Johnson comes away with 2.5 sacks and 4 quarterback hits yesterday. And Tom is a really good player. Everyone who listens to this podcast knows my appreciation for Tom Johnson. But he talked about after the game, because Griffin is there, he got one-on-ones with his man and just overpowered him the whole day. And it seems like a domino effect, starting with Griffin and then on down, making everyone better.
Do you think new replacement windows and patio doors have to be expensive? Think again. I'm Andrew Konopik from Renewal by Andersen. As the full-service replacement window division of Andersen, Renewal by Andersen often has larger discounts and better financing than other companies and contractors. Right now, save 20% on every window and save 20% on every patio door, with 0 money down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for 1 year. You can also save money by replacing your windows in stages. With us, you can even save a lot by simply choosing a different window or patio door style. For affordable windows and patio doors that will last, call Renewal by Andersen to schedule your free appointment and save 20% on your project.
Call 1-800-406-8700. 1-800-406-8700. That's 1-800-406-8700. Offer not available in all areas. Restrictions and conditions apply. Call for license information.
Well, that's the thing is when you have a really good pass rusher on the quarterback's left side, all right, that changes a lot of things. All right, a lot of times teams will slide, which means they'll have the guard maybe use a hand to help with the center, but other than that, his eyes are really helping out that left tackle for some sort of inside move, to be an inside presence. You got to put a running back over there, sometimes the chip or a tight end. And when that happens, all that attention goes to one person. It may shut down that spot. It's sort of like a dam. You might, plug water somewhere in one spot, but, holes are going to open up somewhere else. And that's what happens in these situations. A lot of times those running backs are going through the line of scrimmage, through the interior of the line of scrimmage, check downs over the football, and they can chip on the inside guys, the 3 technique and the nose tackle. When you have to chip on the defensive end, that makes those inside guys all one-on-one blocks.
Yeah, and then, of course, it makes the blitz game even more dangerous for the Vikings, and it was already working over the last few weeks, but then we saw, it didn't look to me like Zimmer was dialing up blitzes as frequently as he has over the past few weeks, especially against the rookie quarterbacks that they faced. But when they did, it got home. Mackenzie Alexander comes up with another sack, and it just seems like with him back, this is the defense that we expected to see. And even though they were missing Andrew Sendejo, Anthony Harris fills in. Even though Xavier Rhodes is a little slowed down by an ankle injury, it doesn't seem to be a big issue. I think what we're realizing here, the success of Mike Zimmer's defense starts with these guys and then just makes everyone behind them better too.
Yeah, and by the way, I think what you said about the blitzing, they didn't need to blitz as much probably because of, part of the reason, another added advantage of having Everson back and those types of things. But I think we should probably sort of put this in the bank and think about this in the future. They played those rookie quarterbacks. And my guess is that's one of those things Zimmer will do is he'll blitz a lot more versus young or rookie quarterbacks or quarterbacks he thinks, will get to. A guy like Stafford. I mean, Stafford has seen every blitz to man, and he's seen everything the Vikings have ever done, 10 times, right? So what's the point? What advantage are you getting? You're not going to get very much confusion usually, when you blitz Stafford. But yeah, the one yesterday that blitz that I saw that got home, was it Mackenzie Alexander, I think, got him?
It was.
That actually surprised me. I think Stafford just missed that one. That actually surprised me, or maybe an offensive lineman simply, was in the wrong type of protection or something. But, usually they don't get home versus him, just straight free guys. And the Vikings got 1 or 2 home yesterday. So
let me switch over to the offensive side of the ball. The same way Everson Griffin impacts the defense as a domino effect, I think it's the same thing for Dalvin Cook, not only because he can break a 70-yard run, but also because of what he can bring in the screen game. He didn't break a big run after catch in the screen game, but they showed it a few times. And you know that if they keep doing that from what we saw last year with Jerick McKinnon and then before that when Cook was in, that he can break those. And now that's another layer to their offense. So not only are teams terrified of him being a great running back, but also what he can do in the passing game.
Listen, Dalvin Cook, did you see that stat, the next gen stats, by the way? I have no idea who does that stuff, but that was the fastest run. He reached the fastest speed in the NFL in 2018. It was like 22.07 miles per hour or something like that. Oh, and by contract, Usain Bolt, when he runs the 100, runs 27 miles an hour.
Yes.
Imagine
but
how
not in pads.
Not in pads, but Dalvin Cook was rolling yesterday. And to think that somebody's going to go 5 miles an hour fast, that is incredible. He is a Porsche. That's what that guy is. He is a home run hitter. Now, he's also a strong back, and I think he likes to run between the tackles. He's not just an edge guy. I think he likes to run sort of north and south. He doesn't have like that sort of Kareem Hunt lateral agility movement. He is a sort of straight ahead, if the hole is there, I'm going to hit it, home run hitter. And my hope and concern is that I know he's a Porsche, but Porsches break down fairly easily. He needs to be more of a mix of a Porsche and a Jeep, whatever that might be, because you like to have those guys like Latavius Murray, who's more of the Jeep, who just rarely get hurt. They're consistent. They can take a pounding. Your best ability is your availability, and hopefully Dalvin Cook is available the rest of the season. That run was unbelievable. He just hit that hole, and the safety took a half a step of a wrong angle, and that was the wrong decision, and he blew right past him.
Dalvin, after the game, was stunned to find out that he had run the fastest. He said, faster than Tyreek Hill? And yep, faster than Tyreek Hill. That is incredible. And it also tells you a little bit about the 40, doesn't it? I mean, Dalvin's 40 is good, but it's like a 4.5 or something. It's not a 4.2. He's not a Trunk candidate. Remember him? You ever play with him?
Yeah, I did not, but I remember the name Trunk. I believe a running back from Arizona.
He was,
I believe.
The only reason
Arizona State, maybe.
The reason I remember him is because he was 99 speed on Madden 03. So everyone wanted to play with Trunk Candidate all the time.
You played a lot of video games growing up, by the way. The video games and Simpsons you bring up on this podcast a lot.
So we didn't have cable when I was growing up. My parents didn't have cable. So I did 3 things. I watched the Simpsons that were on from 6 to 7 on like your local Fox channel. And I played a lot of guitar, and I played a lot of video games because I didn't have ESPN.
Your parents were actually like super ahead of their time. They were cord cutters before cord cutting was cool. I like it.
Well, they didn't even get the cord. They were so far ahead of their time. But yes, I ended up playing a lot of Madden growing up. But anyway, so it just kind of tells you that what a guy runs in shorts at the combine doesn't necessarily compare to his play speed.
That, and they don't get the opportunity because they're not really good football players, and they can't really use that speed. I mean, you have to, have an ability to playing the game of football is much different than the whole shorts thing at the combine. But a lot of times that combine is actually for confirming what you've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously what Cook, what you saw in college was that he was extremely dangerous back. And what you're seeing in the NFL is that when he's healthy, he seems to, when he gets around that edge, a lot of times, you don't think he's going to really capture the edge, and he does.
Mm-hmm.
He just sort of outruns those guys, and he has extremely fast turnover, and he's a very much needed playmaker. The Vikings are going to have healthy if they're going to want to make a run here the second half of the season.
So you know how we have the Journeyman Quarterback of the Week on Wednesdays, and we've got our sort of little intro guy. I think we're going to need one for Sage breaks down Kirk Cousins' interception or fumble. Do you want to break down the interception? Yes, definitely.
Let's break down the interception.
What do you think?
I'm guessing we talked about it yesterday, and I definitely wrote about it last week in my Athletic article. The problem with Kirk is other teams make mistakes more often than not that then causes him to make another mistake. And that's what seems to happen. The left tackle gets beat. So yes, Kirk, it's not his fault, but also he shouldn't fumble the ball.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Stephon Diggs breaks off his route. Yes, but somehow that play doesn't happen to Aaron Rodgers and it goes pick six the other way.
Right.
It's like bad luck seems to find him sometimes when he's trying to maybe overcompensate for someone else's miscue. Yesterday, there's pressure in his face. I believe it was on a naked bootleg.
Yep.
Chris Collinsworth's favorite phrase, the naked bootleg. And he tries to make he got stopped in the pocket. He couldn't get out there on your free roll and have time to throw. He had to get rid of it. He wasn't in a ton of pressure to get rid of it now, so he had a little bit more time. Rather than throwing the ball out of bounds or throwing the ball in the flat or whatever, he decided to still try to make that throw to the corner route, which is a long throw on a bootleg. And to make that throw when you had to stop in the pocket and set up a little bit because you have pressure, you can't get as much on it. You can't see everything, and you have to make a split-second decision. He made a split-second decision because of the pressure, and it cost him. It was an easy interception for the Detroit Lions.
And once again, I'm watching Brady and Rodgers go at it last night, and there are many times where those guys just throw the ball out of bounds. Where
all the time.
There's nothing there, and whoops, okay, something got blown up. We're just gonna wing it out of bounds. Even Stafford did it a couple of times, and he's known as being fairly reckless. And do not make a bad play worse. Right.
All right. That's just football plays for the most part are won because of execution. That's why you practice all that stuff. That's why you're throwing routes in the 90-degree weather. In the summertime, routes on air to your wide receiver, so there's perfect timing.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about execution. When that main execution breaks down, because defensively or the O-line breaks down or whatever it is, all right, two things can happen, either good or bad. And good plays can happen, but more often not, bad plays happen. Or else you wouldn't, again, work on all the execution all the time. You can't always be Michael Jordan and catch the ball in the corner and fade away and somehow make a miraculous three-pointer. And more often than not, it doesn't go in. And so, again, you can't make a bad play worse. And Kirk has done that too many times this year. And my guess, this is what, that those Washington rumblings were before he came to the Vikings. They're like, we're sort of happy to get rid of him. He puts up great numbers. Does a lot of really good things, by the way. And I'm not trying to hurt on Kirk Cousins. I think he's a really good quarterback. But in those situations where things are starting to steamroll negatively, sometimes he does compound those.
So yesterday didn't have Stephon Diggs, and he doesn't even reach 175 yards passing. They didn't need to win that game. It was kind of like the same version of New Orleans throwing for 120 yards. You can't really brag about holding him to 120 yards when they were up 30-13 at one point. Same goes for the Vikings. You'd actually prefer Kirk Cousins not have to throw for 300 yards to win the game. But without Diggs, it was pretty clear that the Lions were able to focus on Adam Thielen, and for the large part, aside from one throw into the end zone, took him away only 22 yards. What did you think of the way that the Vikings adapted their game plan to what the Lions were going to do?
So this is exactly on the flip side why I think Kirk Cousins is so effective. I mean, early in that ball game, he completed those passes to BB on third downs right off the bat. I promise you, Cousins was thinking going to the game, they're going to do something and double team Adam Thielen. I'm going to have this BB kid who nobody knows anything about.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to put their fourth corner on him. And I like that matchup. He's been throwing to him all year as well. Obviously, he's comfortable with them. Those little guys, they can get separation. I mean, he's sort of a small, Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, type of guy. He doesn't have the breakaway, speed. He's not really an outside guy. He's a complete slot guy. And third downs, those slot guys are so valuable. They're getting the weakest corner on the defense, and Cousins knew that. That's where he has that sort of veteran knowledge of a smart, savvy player who understands I'm not going to force the ball to Adam Thielen. I'm going to take this matchup to BB, and he exposed that right off the bat.
I've got a couple of questions for you that are off just the Vikings, but I think are kind of interesting. So, but before I do that, do you have another thought on this game? I mean, it wasn't really one where we can make major big statements aside from saying they really pummeled the Lions. Lions made more mistakes. Lions couldn't block them. And now we go to the bye week. So did you have any other takeaways that you were thinking while watching it?
If I could send John DeFilippo a text message or a voicemail or an email
fax,
or whatever, a fax,
MySpace message,
if I could slide into his DMs,
LinkedIn direct message,
I would say run and design more screens, please, and not just the wide receiver screens where you flip it out there and the linemen are trying to get out ahead and it times out. And when they do that very well, whether it's Thielen, whether it's Diggs, or whoever it might be. But run some creative running back screens, some tight end screens. I don't care if it's David Morgan in the game. You don't have to be a receiving tight end to be good with tight end screens. Sometimes it's actually better to be known as more of a blocker. A defensive end runs up in the play action. The Vikings love the play action. So let's take advantage of that. Let's help out this pass rush. Let's move, they run a lot of nakeds to move the pockets or whatever, like on second down after a run. Let's do some sprint outs. Let's do some waggles. Let's do some just different stuff. But screens are huge on those things. And whether to the running back, I think Latavius Murray would be a very good screen runner. Again, I don't think he's very savvy. He's got great feel. He may not break off a 60-yarder. He breaks those off occasionally, but he knows where to be, and he's just so smart and savvy and where to time it out with his offensive lineman and how to break free of the running back or the linebacker who might be blitzing. I think you got to run more screens. I think it'll help this pass rush, slow it down. You're going to get 30 to 40 passes in a game. All right, you don't want to have 20 of those be straight drop back. You'd like to have 7 of those straight. You got screens, you got bootlegs, you got quick game, you got a little empty quick game. You got all types of things. Let's have fewer drop back passes and more screens.
So I have one number that proves you correct. $30 million. That's how much Jerick McKinnon made off of Pat Shurmur's screens last year. $30 million contract. That's what he got for averaging 8.3 yards per attempt on those screen passes. And I'm entirely with you. They tried a few yesterday with Cook, but I think it's with especially Dalvin back there. It fits the offensive line too. I mean, with Brian O'Neill now starting at right tackle, you have a guy who's extremely athletic. He's great at getting out to defensive backs, and Pat Elflein, of course, is really proficient at this. I mean, it really fits the identity of your offensive line to be able to do that too, which I think Pat Shurmur used brilliantly last year, and they haven't as much this year. You're right. It's been mostly those quick wide receiver screens. So listen,
we have aggressive offensive linemen. We have I don't know what you want to call it. We have like grizzly bear guys. They are aggressive. These aren't patty cake guys who like to pass block. These guys like to come off the football. They want to run the ball, and they like to get on those screens. There's nothing worse than dropping back and have some super talented athlete try to run you over, or it hurts your dang back, and all you can do is really look bad for the most part, and be the embarrassment of the team and of the whole fan base when you give up a sack. All right, they want to come off the ball. They want to get out there in the edge. I think this line, these guys can move, and I think they want to be aggressive and get out on those screens too.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you about Sam Bradford, because on Saturday, the Arizona Cardinals released Sam Bradford. It's been my take, Sage, that Sam Bradford throws the best football that I've ever seen it in person. I didn't see John Elway throw it in person, or Brett Favre. Never made it to a
You never saw Michael Vick.
Oh, boy.
Vick.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, my God.
I did not see Michael Vick in person, but my goodness.
Amazing.
Yes. But Sam Bradford, right up there with the greats in terms of the arm talent, and his time between 2015 and 2016 with Philadelphia and with the Minnesota Vikings, I would argue showed the type of quarterback he could be. Nope, not Aaron Rodgers, but was he as good as Kirk Cousins during that time? I'd say probably, yeah. And injuries just took apart this guy's career. So when you see the jokes about like, oh, he robbed the blind and all this stuff and the great finesse game of taking all this money, it just sort of like annoys me, because the guy was deserving of contracts because of his talent and what he could have done. And it's not really his fault that his knee collapsed. And it's just it's sort of frustrating.
Let me say a couple things. One, I disagree with you. I don't think he's as good as Kirk Cousins, or never really was. Let's just say that. Two, he threw a beautiful ball. He had a strong arm, but it wasn't super strong. It wasn't as strong as Kirk Cousins is, I don't think. And Aaron Rodgers and a lot of these guys, Cam Newton. But he was super accurate. He was like a 7-on-7 quarterback's dream. You know, if you're in a tournament, he might be one of the guys you have. He's a good decision maker. He's accurate. He's just not a great athlete after all these surgeries and injuries. I don't know how good of an athlete he was at Oklahoma, but he was just never sort of a great athlete. He was never a playmaker. He was a guy who could execute your offense, but really not do much more after that. All right. So for people that get worked up about that he made so much money, he earned every dollar of that. That is supply and demand. Now, listen, if he was a bust after he was the first pick, and he sort of just sucked from there, and you could say he sort of stole a lot of money, have at it. But teams knowingly signed him to all these extensions because he was a good player. Mm-hmm. They knew what they're getting themselves into. And after he'd have up and downs the next team, another team would give him another contract. So that is supply and demand. Good for you, Sam Bradford. It always bothers me it always amazes me when people hate on an athlete for maybe making more money than they were worth. Mm-hmm. But like, we're cool with, con artists making money off of selling stupid shit on TV. Like, that's fine. Hey, it's just capitalism. Good for them. Good for them, right? So it's like, I'm guessing he's done, but he made a ton of money, probably more than he deserved, but who cares? Good for him. He's a nice guy. His teammates always liked him. He got injured a lot, and bon voyage, and I hope he has a wonderful retirement. And maybe somebody else signs him. I have no idea about it. So hopefully a good retirement, and I have zero ill will towards Sam Bradford, nothing but praise and admiration, and probably some jealousy. Good job. I wish I would have done that. Maybe we're all just jealous.
So let me make my case as far as him being a pretty darn good quarterback for a significant stretch. Not the body of work, the win-loss record. It's not very good, but that's sort of twisted by a 1-9 season and then the injuries. But between his time in Philadelphia, from after he kind of sort of got back into the groove of it with his knee injury. So after the first 3 weeks in Philadelphia, all the way to the first week in Minnesota, 27 game stretch. He had a 97.1 quarterback rating, 39 touchdowns, 15 picks, 70% completion percentage. All these numbers, pretty good. I'm not saying he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He was darn good for a stretch.
You can't be shitty and have a 70% completion percentage over an entire NFL season. I mean, he set the record. Mm-hmm. He's super accurate. The issue was, part of the reason that they were doing such high completion percentage stuff was that the offensive line was so bad that year that they went to all those wide receiver screens. Pat Shermer did a fantastic job of drawing those things up, designing them. So because he wasn't mobile, he couldn't, make plays and move around that much. And so they did those things. So again, he was at his height, he was a very good quarterback. But for the most part, he was probably somewhere in the middle, overall. And his, again, that whole availability versus just ability thing, his availability wasn't always there, and it caused teams to have to use their backup quarterback a lot and or just basically throw a season in the garbage because their starting quarterback went down.
Right. And luckily for the Vikings, that didn't happen last year because of Case Keenum, but it very well could have. And after Keenum's first start, we thought it was going to. So last thing for you, as we go into the bye week for the Vikings, and we'll do on Wednesday like a bye week breakdown or something, but just what is your feel on the NFC now after we got a nice little battle between New Orleans and Los Angeles that was really fun to watch? You saw the Packers lose another game. They went down to New England last night. Washington lost their great left guard, Brandon Schreff. So that division looks like kind of a mess, but Carolina now looks strong and Atlanta now looks strong. So like, do you feel like you're starting to get a sense of where the Vikings stand in the NFC now?
Yeah, I think the Vikings are going to be, I mean, listen, it's early. I think they will be in the playoffs, whether they win the division or even the runners up, and get the wild card. I think they're going to be right there. I think there's two elite teams. There's the Saints and the Rams. You know, do you think the Saints win that game if it's played at the Coliseum in Los Angeles? I don't know. I'm thinking the Rams might win that one. I think those are two very even teams. And that, by the way, that game was a lot of fun to watch.
It was.
Two great. Jared Goff is a very good player, and he can really rip it and throw a ball into some tight windows. I was really impressed in that football game. By the way, it goes to show how much the value of coaching is in the NFL. That's a whole nother podcast. But yeah, I think those two are the elites of the conference. And then it comes down to, I think the Vikings are in this group of Vikings and Carolina, so the other teams that are, going to be in, but they're not going to be a 14 or a 13 win playoff team. They're, probably going to get 10, maybe 11 wins, maybe only 9, but they're going to be in that mix between 9, 10 wins. I think there's going to be a whole bunch of teams that are sort of, the bottom 4 and the two elites at the top that I don't know if the Saints or or the Rams are going to lose the rest of the year, and it might be the Saints home field advantage. It's going to be interesting that those two teams, because those two teams do know how important home field advantage will be for both of them for that NFC Championship game.
Yeah, no, I agree that it's still up in the air with all the middle teams, and I would say don't sleep on Atlanta. They've won 3 in a row, and their offense is fantastic. And even if their defense isn't great, they might be one of those teams this year that sort of we all forget about early on and then comes charging back. So, all right. Well, Sage, enjoy your trip, and we will talk on Wednesday. Prepare your grades, my friend. We'll go through the Vikings' first half, sort of the season, and then we will then next week prepare for Chicago. So we'll talk to you then.
Our grade's been A+. That's all I give a shit about.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Can I swear on this thing? I don't even know if
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever. I just did.
Okay. Doesn't matter. FCC rules don't apply to podcasts, I don't think.
Gotcha.
So,
well, that's all I care deeply about. That we've got A+.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll talk to you again soon. And of course, all of you, Purple Podcast Live is on from 6 to 7 on Tuesday night. And also we'll be doing an appearance at a Lucky's 13. Have details on Twitter. That is on Thursday night. So we will talk to you all then.
Lemonade.
Sure, how much?
That'll be $700.
You can't be serious.
Who taught you math?
I learned from Bob Hugan. He ran a drug company that charged $700 for a cancer pill that only cost 65 cents to make.
Oh, that guy? He's no good.
You know what Bob Hugan also did? Raised over $400,000 to help elect Trump.
Really?
Yes, really.
And he would mess up our healthcare, too, by repealing Obamacare, leading to cuts in Medicaid, and coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Who told you that?
Our parents, duh.
Well, who are they voting for?
Bob Menendez. He's standing up to Trump and Republicans from taking away our health care.
And Menendez helped write Obamacare, so you know he's going to protect it, along with Medicaid and even my grandma's Social Security and Medicare.
And women's health programs, too.
Okay, I'm with you. Vote Menendez. Vote
for Bob Menendez. Tuesday, November 6th.
Paid for by Leadership Alliance. LeadershipAllianceNJ.com. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. Leadership Alliance is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I'm Rita Foley with an AP News Minute. This time tomorrow, millions of Americans will be going to the polls. But who will they be voting for? Democrats are hoping to take the House. And Senator Chris Van Hollen, who chairs the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, tells ABC's This Week early turnout among Latinos in Arizona and Nevada is encouraging Democrats who are watching the Senate vote.
We're already seeing the early voting results in those states, and you are seeing a good, healthy turnout among Latino voters as well as younger voters, and you're seeing a pattern of good turnout for Democrats and independents who are supporting Democratic candidates.
But President Trump says
the level of fervor, the level of fever is very strong on the Republican side. So I can't speak to the blue, but I can speak to the red. There's a lot of energy out there.
Another win for the Patriots. They beat the Packers last night 31-17. I'm Rita Foley.